If we accept that such views are widespread, can we accept that they influence elites and foreign policy? This is of course more difficult, but some evidence can be found. For instance, one example can be found in the former House of Representatives Majority Leader Tom DeLay. After DeLay had listened to a sermon by John Hagee, the premillennialist televangelist, DeLay said, "Ladies and gentlemen, what has been spoken here tonight is the truth from God." Incidentally, when John Hagee recovered from COVID-19, he let everyone know how he'd recovered. "We have a vaccine," he said. "The name is Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God." But let's forget about leaders of the House of Representatives. Let's go to the big job, the US President. Let's start with Ronald Reagan. We can glean some of Ronald Reagan's religious geopolitics from the time before he became president. Speaking at a dinner with California state legislators in 1971, Reagan said, "Ezekiel tells us that Gog, the nation that will lead all of the other powers out of darkness against Israel, will come out of the north. Biblical scholars have been saying for generations that Gog must be Russia. What other powerful nation is to the north of Israel? None. But it didn't seem to make sense before the Russian Revolution, when Russia was a Christian country. Now it does. Now that Russia has become communistic and atheistic, now that Russia has set itself against God, now it fits the description of Gog perfectly." Gog and Magog is a reference made in the book of Ezekiel, and if you haven't heard of Gog and Magog, you're not alone. In the run-up to the 2003 invasion of Iraq, French President Jacques Chirac first discovered the phrase in a phone conversation with George W. Bush, in which the American president was trying to persuade his French counterpart to support an invasion of Iraq. "Jacques," said Bush, "you and I share a common faith. We are both Christians, committed to the teachings of the Bible. We share one common Lord. Gog and Magog are at work in the Middle East. Biblical prophecies are being fulfilled. This confrontation is willed by God, who wants to use this conflict to erase his people's enemies before a new age begins." Anyway, back to Ronald Reagan's after-dinner speech. Reagan concluded by saying, "For the first time ever, everything is in place for the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Christ." A year later, when he heard about Gaddafi's coup in Libya, Reagan responded, "That's a sign that the day of Armageddon isn't far off. Everything's falling into place. It can't be long now. Ezekiel says that fire and brimstone will be rained upon the enemies of God's people. That must mean they'll be destroyed by nuclear weapons." Now, that speech was a decade before Reagan entered the Oval Office, and even when he got there are lots of other factors that go into the formation of foreign policy, but we should consider this as one factor in Reagan's thinking.